Hello everybody, we'll be talking about the Surge Blade build, which skills to use, which runes to use, what tripods, and rotation. There are a few rotations you can do depending on what runes you have and how much spec do you have. First of all, in terms of skill, it's almost the same as remaining energy. It varies only with one skill, where on the remaining energy you're gonna use the extra DPS skill, which is Moonlight Sonic, this one. And on the search skill, you'll be on search engraving, you'll be using Wind Cut instead, which helps you stack the search. So the raid boss, guardian raids, and etc., like the single target build, will be using Wind Cut with the quick prep, sustain enhancement for the duration, and tick sword energy. This is unnecessary. It's a quality of life. It makes it bigger, so it's easier to hit the target if you misplace it or you can't place it when you are not close to the boss and you just put it out of the range. So you don't need it. 7 points into this is enough. This is a quality of life. Spin Cutter. You want to max this out for the extra stack, because Wind Cut and Spin Cutter are your main stacking abilities for the search. So those are very important. Quick prep and triple spin, max it out ASAP. Dark Axle is to get behind the boss before you deliver a blow with the search. So basically, once you have enough stacks, so you can reposition behind the boss with that. On the certain encounters, you can drop completely Axel, where you can just use Spin Cutter as a repositioning tool and play extra DPS skill as Moonlight Sonic. You might see that on some videos from Korea where they are dropping Axel, because on certain encounters you just don't need it at all. But most of the time you'll be using that. Except of the Surge, we are using Surge Blade has two skills that are used for DPS. First of them is Soul Absorber. We're gonna be using Swift Fingers, Fist of Darkness, and Half. 3 DPS tripods, straight up. You just use on this one Galewind to speed it up, because it takes quite some time without Supercharge to deliver the blow with that skill. Next one on the list is the Earth Cleaver. That's gonna be your main counter and stagger skill. Also can be replaced for Moonlight if you need more DPS. Right now on the Europe and NA, there is not much things you really care about staggering or countering. Therefore you can drop it for Moonlight Sonic, but it's better to get used to the skill. I use this mainly as a movement skill with push rune, with push tripod. On this one you're gonna be using Push, Darkness Injection, and Earth Explosion. You might see people use Weak Point Detection, but Darkness Injection is better because what happens, Push is an extra instance of damage, which also applies Darkness Injection, which makes it have bigger DPS with the Darkness Injection, and also Darkness Injection also applies an extra stagger instance on the boss. So if the target is quite big, like Velganos, where you put it when you attack it to the face with Push, Darkness Injection, and Earth Explosion will apply Darkness Injection as well, which makes it 4 stacks of Darkness Injection, which is really significant, and applies a lot of extra stagger to the boss, especially where Velganos have a stagger check. You can stagger the boss just with the Earth Cleaver, Soul Absorber, and 1 extra skill. It doesn't matter really which one, even if without the, like, I found that even skills like Spin Cutter, Wind Cut, they have very small stagger, even though they say they don't. And the next skill on the list will be Maelstrom. Extremely important to use, even though we don't have the same Maelstrom as they have in Korea and Russia, where Maelstrom, whenever it damages the boss, it applies an extra stack to the Surge. It's still extremely useful to build up the initial Gaug and then rebuild when you dump your stacks at 12, 14 at the Surge to get it back, and for attack speed for the Blitz Rush and Soul Absorb with the Dark Order. So we go here always 7 points, Orc Control, Dark Order, and we use a Focus Rune to save the mana, because the build is extremely mana hungry when you do the 12 to 14 stacks rotation, sometimes even at 10. I'm usually going between 10 to 15 stacks, depends on what type of the boss is and how often can I dump the stacks. Yeah. And our 2 last skills is first is Blitz Rush. It's our second highest DPS skill after Surge. Surge is the identity skill, Blitz Rush is the regular skill, and we are going for the Vital Point, Charge Enhancement, and Shadow Rush in terms of skills. tripods, and it's straight up just 3 DPS tripods we go for. Rune-wise, Galewind just to speed it up, and Void Strike is our main identity generation. We're gonna be using 12 rune, use the highest you get, it's either legendary, epic, or rare. And this is the skill you're gonna be holding on to recharge the identity if you use the below 20 stacks Surge. I'm gonna show you in a sec how does the rotation look like. So, wealth on the charge, rest, attack speed. Also, I started to use Rage on the Axel and Spin Cutter with the Galewind. I found it a bit better because what happens after you use Dark Axel behind the boss, it's easy. You have the better window to use the Surge. The animation is smoother, faster. So you have a bigger chance of getting a back attack in case boss decides to just 180 spin around and you miss a back attack, which is very big later into the game when you have Master of Ambush, when you have back attack set from Valtan, which we're gonna get in like a month. So it's important to get used to back attacking with Surge because it's a very big chunk of your damage. And on bleed, we use on the Windcut Bleed. This is an optional, definitely worth it before we get a full Valtan set. After Valtan, I'll reevaluate, check the DPS, how it looks like in comparison to other runes. But right now, Bleed is the best in slot. Yeah, obviously I forgot to swap on the alt here, the legendary. So I'm gonna show you on 3 different characters how does the rotation look with 3 different stats, with different tripods, cooldowns and gems, so you have a good comparison. We're gonna start with the rotation on the T2 character first. This is my 960, we have 970 here spec, and we have 0 gems. Yeah, so it's gonna be pretty raw. So we're gonna have a good comparison. Yeah, let's summon the boss. So we have to build up the Gauk. Usually the first rotation we're gonna dump this so we have a good comparison. We start from doing the Maelstrom before you do anything else. The easiest way, you use the Awakening, you one-tap your Void Strike and boom, you are full. You can start stacking up. You use your Spin Cutter first. We should have started with Spin Cutter. And the problem is now with the cooldowns, we are kinda low on the cooldowns. We could have dumped at 11, but we didn't. And now when you dump, you keep in mind when you one-tap the Void Strike, it delivers the supercharge already, overcharge attack anyway. So what happens now? We do one tap, which already gives us almost full stack. So what happens now? We have to just help it a bit, for example with the Wind Cut, and the Void Zone that is applied by the Void Strike also gives us over time the identity, right? So depends what's your spec, what if you have wealth legendary, if you have wealth epic. It depends how much identity will you get from this one tap Void Strike, because it varies. Like if you check it out here, look how much will it give us. Okay, we have to dump again because the Void Zone gave us. So the raw one tap delivers already the overcharge, which gives us that much energy, right? And without supercharge engraving, you can do that. Because if you don't take this tripod, then you can't one tap Void Strike, because you would need to hold it until full to deliver the overcharge attack. But this allows you to just one tap it, which gives you all the identity you need. And like keep in mind stuff like Rune with Orb Control, those has multiplicative effect, not additive. So having Orb Control level 4 from tripods later is quite big with wealth. On top of that, Maelstrom is also multiplicative. So look what happens. Look what happens when you apply Maelstrom on top of the Void Strike and you just one-tap it. We're gonna be getting... Oh, also keep in mind what we should be doing. We should be standing close to the boss. You're gonna be getting more identity because of the traveling time. Also applies the extra identity. See how much we get, slightly more because we are closer to the boss, which allows us to start getting extra. Also, you can like at the beginning of the rotation, you can start with holding it to get more of the bar. If you don't want to start with your awakening because you want to keep it for, let's say, destruction or stagger later for the boss. So if we do this as a beginning, it gives us slightly more. It's not that big of a deal. Ideally, I think it's better to just start your rotation by Maelstrom into one tap, and you can continue with those. So the opener on the Guardians would look like this. We start Maelstrom, we can start with the Absorber to close the gap, so we should have Spin Cutter. And we are slightly short. We don't have enough spec to fill full gap with our rotation. That's why early on, you're gonna be starting with Awakening. Keep in mind, use your Maelstrom before Awakening, because you get more identity. We can obviously check it. If you use Awakening, it's 1.5. If we use with Maelstrom, it's almost full 2. Yeah? So keep in mind, if you have Orb Control, higher level of the tripod, it's obviously gonna apply even more to the Awakening. So open up with the Awakening with Maelstrom to get the identity with your low on spec. Keep in mind to use the Spin Cutter to apply the DPS boost. And I still have my cooldown on the Maelstrom here yet. And here, because we dumped at 10 stacks, we'll be using the hold. We'll be using the hold on the Void Strike to just get slightly more identity there. So here we can dump at 11 stack. We're gonna do that. And here, because we have not that much spec, we're gonna be holding it to get that spec identity a bit faster. But once you're gonna have a bit more, I'm gonna show you on the other characters, it becomes slightly easier. So the problem is we have no gems now, which means we have problems with the cooldowns. Normally that would be an issue. So if we dump here at 16, one tap and you can reapply and you can start stacking again. You don't have to do the wind cut right away, because we have the void zone on the ground, which is applying the stacks. So here we dump at 14, one tap, we are full back, and we can keep doing the rotation. You want to have S-fluid rotation without any cooldown gems and with low spec, but for a T2 character as a full budget, it's quite good. So now we dumped at 14. Let's see if we can get to full with one tap, with Maelstrom and Void Strike. Almost there, almost there. You can't instant, you have to wait a second, or apply Wind Cut earlier to get the full identity. Yeah, when you dump at 14 stacks with that amount of the spec. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna swap to another character to showcase how it looks with gems and show how it looks with a bit more specialization. Alright guys, and now we jumped on our 14-15 character. It has almost non-existent gems. We have tier 2 gems on tier 3 character, which means the effect is halved. So it's pretty much non-existent, but we'll be comparing the amount of the spec this character has to the spec that the T2 character had. Yeah? So let's see. We're gonna waste our identity to rebuild it again. So let's compare it to how much one tap of the Void Strike gives on this guy. And keep in mind, this guy has a level 4 orb control, which gives you also a higher amount of the identity. So you can see it's quite a significant change to the character that was in T2. And now let's try it with the Maelstrom, which Maelstrom also has the level 4 orb control already. Yeah. Let's waste the resources. You can see with the on the ground the damage, we are getting almost 1.5 bar in comparison to only 1 to the T2 character. And let's see now how our opening rotation looks like in comparison to the opening of the T2 character. Yeah. Alright, so we don't have to, on this character, we don't have to open with ulti, with the Awakening, to gain full Gaug. So we open with the Maelstrom, Wind Cut, to apply the debuff. And we are full, and we can start our rotation. The problem is the gems and the first rotation might be a bit off because we were just refilling. We apply the debuff, dump, one tap, dump this, and we go full rotation again. And now with gems, it won't be a problem here with the cooldowns. I'm gonna showcase this later. Keep in mind also, and on the normal enemy, you'll be running more, you'll be dodging more, so the cooldowns won't be that big of an issue with this amount of the spec. So the cooldown gems won't be that relevant until you get more attack speed, so you can perform the rotation faster. But the whole point is that you are doing this with the 12 stacks. The problem will be mana, but that's the only problem with the mana is the Atrixion. On the normal boss fight you won't have because you don't have perfect DPS uptime. And now we can't even fit Maelstrom because we wouldn't have enough mana. Normally you can also do the Maelstrom now instead of Void Strike once you have enough spec to perform your combo faster. But the problem is, yeah, now it's Trixion, we can't perform. We don't have enough for the Void Strike one tap. That's why I prefer Maelstrom into Void Strike. Once we have 1600 spec, I believe you will be able just to one tap Void Strike without Maelstrom with 12 stacks. At 12 stacks, you pretty much need to do Maelstrom into Void Strike right now. Yeah. So that's the difference between T2, T3 character with the average amount of the stats. Those stats you will be able to achieve once you get the 1370 specialization accessories. So now we're gonna go hope on the character that has actually cooldown gems, yeah, to compare it on my main character. Alright guys, so we are back, we are on my main is 1461, it has the same spec, the only difference in rotation will be the gems cooldowns. So you'll see the rotation is smoother when you have level 10 cooldown gems. Keep in mind the level between the level 10 and level 7 gem, it's only 6% difference in cooldown. So it's very, very small. You don't have to pursue for level 8, I just like min-maxing, so that's why I have level 10 gems. Yeah, so let's see how the rotation looks on this character. We start from the one tap. We dump wind cut before we go into the stance, so it starts applying the stacks. We dump at 12, one tap. You can see already how the rotation spoofens out. And when you'll be dodging, it will be way smoother as well in terms of rotation. But you see there is pretty much almost no downtime here with the cooldown reduction. We'll start running out of the mana soon with this rotation. But again, that's the only problem in the Trixion. At the normal boss fight, you won't have that issue. And as you see, we already can't do the combo. If you want to do the perfect rotation, like if you want to do infinite, you need to purchase the food. Now, if you don't want to have mana issue, you have to buy Master's Herb Steak Meal, which we can do. We can't use consumable here. We would need to eat it before. But then again, the combat resource natural recovery is plus 24%, which is your mana recovery. With that, you would be able to go infinite in with this rotation in the Trixion. So regarding the rotation, the most DPS rotation is from between 12 and 14 stacks. There are some bosses where you can't really do that because later on you'll have to focus on hitting the back because of the ambush master. Because it gives you so much damage on top of the extra 5% damage amplify to the back attack and 10% crit chance. And later we'll have a back attack set from the Valtan and Vikas. And it's extremely important to back attack with Surge, otherwise it will be dealing literally to no damage. That's why sometimes you'll be going to even 20 stacks, even though it's less damage, because you'll need to find a window where you can back attack with your Surge. So you'll be able, you'll be doing way more like this, repositioning with your spin cut. You'll be more like stacking to upkeep your adrenaline stacks. You'll be doing this way more often into dumping the back attack. So this, and you'll naturally your way to 20 stacks, even though it's the not most efficient way, right? In terms of engravings, what are the best engravings for Blade? As the budget one for T3, I would recommend going, because we have guaranteed +3 on the accessories from Oreja and Argos, you can go for Surge level 3, Ambush Master level 3. Those are your best friends, because Ambush Master, like you want to back attack anyway, because the most DPSing skills are all back attacks, which is Surge, then Blitz Rush, then Soul Absorb, and then Void Strike. Void Strike is only stacking ability. You don't use it for DPS. You can turn it into DPS later on in the end game when you would like to use a 5th engraving supercharge, and then you use different tripods. But again, we'll be talking now about stuff that we have available to us. So priority: Ambush Master, then Adrenaline, then Grudge, then Curse Doll. Surge level 1 ideally in terms of engravings. So this would be Surge level 1, this would be Curse Doll, and this would be your ideal engravings for this moment. Right now I'm running the more budget version, because like I could go there, but it's just not needed for the current content. Adrenaline, Ambush Master, and Surge, those are your free friends, free X3. You don't need more until hard mode Valtan. You can just run those until up until normal Valtan. Later on, you can add either Curse Doll, Grudge. There are budget options like Side Focus. You can use Supercharge even on the Surge Blade, just for the convenience of using Blitz Rush and Soul Absorb. And you would change the Dark Dimension for the Dark Explosion, because it would be fast enough to fully charge, regardless of the to full juice with the Maelstrom. This allows us to just one-tap it with the overcharge attack. Yeah. If I forgotten about anything, guys, ask the questions in the comments. I'll gladly answer. And yeah, this is my first guide on the Lost Ark. I know that I talked a bit fast. You can play it in the 0.5 to slow it down, rewind. If you gonna have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll be answering. I'm also streaming on the Twitch. The link would be in the description. Feel free to step by and ask anything in the chat. Hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, I'll see you. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video, and let us know what you think about that one. Kurwa mać! Alright, I'll be talking about the rotation, like for the guide, like I'll use this Yoho for the guide purposes later. Yeah, so we start from the Maelstrom to get better stacks, better amount of the identity, and then we follow up with the Void Strike and Soul Absorber, because those are the best generating skills in terms of identity. We're gonna finish up with Axel to get full. And then we start rotation. We start with Spin Cutter to apply the debuff. We follow up with to catch up the boss with the Earth Cleaver. And we're gonna be sticking around between 12 to 16 stacks on the boss usually. After the dumping, we do the Maelstrom into the Void Strike, or solo Void Strike. So here we have 13 stacks. We're just gonna Axel behind the boss, dump it. We're gonna Maelstrom to increase the attack speed, and one tap Void Strike. Don't hold the Void Strike, it's not necessary. And we continue our rotation. Here we could already dump, but he got invulnerable, so we couldn't get stacks. Remember, you need to damage the boss to continue having stacks. I'm casting spells empty to maintain the Adrenaline stacks. Get the behind the boss, dump Surge, Maelstrom, Void Strike one tap, we missed. So now we have to improvise. We can either ulti to get the full stacks, or just use other skills. We got full. We start with the Spin Cutter to apply the debuff. And we go again with the rotation. We wait for the boss to do the attack, and then we dump again. Maelstrom, we know he's jumping. One tap the... oh, my bad. One tap Void Strike. And now we need to wait for the identity. And before we tap the identity, we do the Wind Cut, so we get already stacks for the Surge and the cooldown reset. Boss goes invisible again. We maintain the adrenaline stacks by casting empty spell on the ground. We start from Windcut to get the stacks. We wait for him to jump down, and then we immediately... Oh, I don't have the jump. We dump at 12. Now you have to do Maelstrom. You have to do Maelstrom before the Void Strike, because tapping Void Strike wouldn't give you enough identity. We start with Spin Cut to apply the debuff and get the cooldown reduction. Apply the debuff before we do the Surge. Dump, Maelstrom to speed up, and reset the cooldown on the thingy. Wind Cut before activating Surge, so for the cooldown reset and building up the stacks. Soul Absorber apply the debuff. Wind Cut to build more stacks while we are casting Surge. One tap, activate, and we go again. Jump behind the boss, Cleaver, Absorber, and Bliss Rush, and then we dump after a Spin Cut. We don't do full, we don't need full, 14 stacks is enough, dump Wind Cut and go again. Boom, boom, we can ulti here for the maximum damage. And dump again at 11 stacks Maelstrom. Hold a bit Void Strike because we dumped at 11, so we might be a bit short on the energy there. We can do one more attack before, and boss is dead. Alright, I have to time stop this for the Victor.